Wasteland.com. This video is about two particular knives and my thoughts on whether they could be the greatest knives money can buy. Now, they're definitely the greatest knives that a small amount of money can buy, and that's basically my point. And because they're certainly not the best knives that exist. But I've talked about knives in a few of my videos recently. In one of the videos, I said it was one of the things, your main knife is one of the things that you should not skimp on. You should not buy cheaply. These may actually be exceptions to that, though in general, I do think you should try and save up and get a really solid, slightly more expensive knife. But these are an amazing value for the price, both of these. And there's just no reason to buy an inferior knife when these are out there for the price. So the two knives that I'm going to be going over are the Mora knife, which I'm sure many of you guys have heard of, and it's several variations, and the Glock knife. It's actually interesting because I've had this knife for about 15 years, and I just recently saw the modern survivalist Fernando Aguirre do a video on it, and his claim was, and I'd already been planning on doing a video on this because I saw it after I did that video about being important to spend money on a knife, and I was like, you know what, this might be an exception. And then he made a video claiming that it could be the greatest knife out there, and he puts up some good points. Another good video on the subject is by Outdoor Survival, so I will have on the knives themselves, the Glock knives, and a couple the two variations of them, because I'm not going to get into all the technical specifications of these knives, because that's just not really my thing. I'm not one of those blade guys. I'm not going to be talking about all the minutia of the knives themselves, the different types of steel and all that, but they get into some of that stuff as well. So if you're really interested in that, get into it. I'm just going to go over the general features of these knives and why they're so amazing for the price. So starting out with the Glock knife, as with always, I think this is an ugly knife, first of all. Just like their guns, Glock does not make beautiful things, they make functional things. And the other thing that you'll notice is that this is mostly looks like a combat knife. It's actually a bayonet. It was made for the Austrian military to be a bayonet. It was an open contract. He quickly made his design using his well-known polymers, of course, and as usual, nailed it in terms of functionality and resilience. The interesting thing, and that's something that a lot of people don't like about this, is that it's not a full tang, but that only matters in because most knives that are made out of plastic handle use inferior plastics. The Glock polymers are really good. The design of everything about it means that this is incredibly resilient, probably the most resilient partial tang knife. I think it has like a rat tail tang in there that exists, and very simple design, but it's useful for any sort of bushcrafting type stuff that you could normally do. It's going to function fine for that, and it can also be used obviously for combat situations too. The other variation, the only variation that I'm aware of at this point, is that the model, I think the 81, if I'm not mistaken, it's 78 and 81, and the 81 has the sawtooth back, which in my opinion is probably not all that functional. It's a very rough tooth kind of root saw, as they call it, and I'd rather have the flat for using fire steels and things like that if you need to. The sheath is really ugly. I don't like the way it looks, but it has great retention and just a very simple clip / belt loop. Interesting thing about the sheath is that you can put it in ambidextrously so that you can wear it right or left-handed and still have it come out the blade direction that you want. And so all that, great knife, obviously overall decent knife. $30, $32 I think on Amazon. Actually, I just looked these up before I made the video. I think right now, at the time I'm recording this video, Amazon has this for like $7 off. So you can get this knife for like $25, which is, I have no problem saying this is probably the best fixed blade knife you can get for $25. With the possible exception, depending on what your uses are, of the Mora Scandinavian knife. You've all heard of these because they became very popularized by a couple well-known bushcrafters. The interesting thing about these is they're obviously a bushcrafting knife. They're not a combat self-defense knife. Any knife is going to serve that purpose to some extent because you can injure and hurt any living thing with a sharp knife. The grind on these is what stands out. It's called the Scandi Grind, where there's not a secondary bevel at the edge. Because if you look at something that has like I believe it's called a saber grind, the first part of the bevel starts much higher near the spine, and then at the very end, the angle changes again to make the actual edge. And that's what you'll see on most knives, like my primary outdoor knife, the very basic kind of beastly Warthog 1/4-inch thick hunk of steel BK2. Same sort of saber grind where you see it start from way back here, and then as you get closer, the angle changes again. On the Scandi Grind, which is not nearly as common, you'll see that it starts much closer to the edge, the actual grind here, and then there's no secondary bevel. It just goes right to the blade. So it can make it simple to sharpen, but you have to use it slightly differently. Stainless steel blade. And the thing about these is they're incredibly lightweight, rubberized handle, and the price for these is like $10. I think this one, the 511 basic version here, is $10. I'll have a link to all these in the description. And this is what's the model on this one? Forget the model on that one. I believe it's called the Pro C. Just a slightly wider blade, about the same length. So I'd just go ahead and spring for that one if you're going to be doing a lot of outdoor stuff with them. But these are so cheap and so lightweight that there's almost no reason not to just buy a couple of these and throw an extra one in pretty much every bug out bag or kit that you have. The sheaths are very simple, not insane retention, but it snaps in a friction retention, non-reversible for direction. But they're called a combi sheath because they have a unique kind of clip on the back that allows you to use this front part of the Mora knife here to, let me see if you guys can see that, to put it in and combine, if I can see what I'm doing, this light's shining in my face, sorry guys. There we go. So you slide it in, twist it until it locks, and then come back. And you could theoretically piggyback as many as you wanted on there. I'm not sure what exact purpose this would serve in any useful sense. You're not going to walk around with 2 more knives on your hip most of the time, but to keep them together in your bag or something like that, maybe. Interesting feature, but I don't see it as being too significant. But they've shown themselves through repeated heavy outdoor use to be incredibly resilient, incredibly useful, and insanely cheap. 10 to 12 bucks. You just can't beat that. I challenge you guys to find a better all-purpose, mini outdoor knife than the Mora, and a general all-purpose, potentially combat knife with this kind of ruggedness. Because Glock puts their stuff through all kinds of torture tests and everything else for 30 bucks. In this case, 25 bucks. Insane value. So while I do think you should probably, if you're spend any significant amount of time doing outdoor stuff, camping, bushcrafting, prepping, whatever like that, you should probably you would want to invest in a knife that is more designed, strictly speaking, for bushcrafting and outdoor stuff, and is bigger and more a little more resilient than the Mora knives. Not that those aren't resilient, but they're just a small knife. Small knife with a relatively thin blade. Now I will say, because I carry, like I said, I carry this a lot for outdoor stuff. If I had to make a trigger for a deadfall trap or something like that, and you had to make a fine notches, you're carving your bow drill equipment, I'm probably going to use a knife like this. It's a lot easier to control. But if you're forced to do any batoning or something like that, I would be very wary about using either of these knives. This one because of the partial tang. And batoning is rough on knives. I'm going to do a video on that soon either. It's not something that you want to be regularly doing just out of convenience. But there are going to be situations where in a survival situation or emergency situation, you're just going to need to do it. And a knife like this that is literally just a 1/4-inch hunk of steel all the way back is going to hold up to that a lot better. So that's it. Let me know what you guys think. If you think that there is any better 2 knives for the price, let me know. I've also mentioned, of course, the Rat One folders as one of the best folding knives for the price. But when it comes to fixed blade knives for the price, for $10 or $12 and $25 to $35, hard to beat. Impossible, maybe. You might not be able to beat them. I don't know of any that beat them. Let me know what you guys think. Check out the other videos that these guys have done on the knives that I mentioned before, where they go into a lot more detail on the specifications. Particularly Fairfowl's video is the Modern Survivalist. His is like 40 minutes long or something. He goes into a lot of the technical aspects of the gun, of the knife. He obviously is a big fan, and it shows in the video. And he makes a convincing case for it as well. And that was one of the things. His and Outdoor Survival's videos both had me thinking about doing my own after I dug this one out of some storage that I had. Love it. And I said, this is, like I said, this is already a 15-year-old knife, roughly, maybe even older, that I've used quite extensively. The finish holds up really well. No nicks in the, I mean, you can see that I've used it and stuff, but I've farted around with this a lot in the woods. And nothing, man. Good stuff. Great knife for the price. Let me know what you use as your main outdoor knife, bug out knife, bushcraft knife, whatever you want to call it. And if you have any experience with these as well. Thanks for watching. I'll talk to you later.